What's up, guys? Today we're going to do our first tier list ranking. That is correct. I noticed that everyone's doing like their top 2024 horror movies, so I figured I'd jump in the mix. The only thing is my channel's still relatively new and we haven't covered all of them, of course. So what I have done is created a tier list for the top real value movies that we have discussed on this channel so far. There are the 18 that we have covered. I got 18 videos out there. That's right. But I've also included some movies that I might have just mentioned in passing. So there are more than what we've discussed, but I hope that this will kind of help also with my overall rating patterns and how I review movies. Now, the only thing is these movies are kind of like competing against themselves in this tier list, and I'll explain as we go on further. Okay, so welcome to The Real Value. Today, we're going to be discussing a tier list of our top real value movies that we've discussed so far in 2024. So again, this isn't necessarily a top 2024 horror movie tier list, but a top real value has talked about these movies in 2024 tier list. All right, so at the very bottom of the list, My Upstairs Neighbors. Yeah, so these are movies that are quick to annoy or anger me for having to sit through and watch them. These are the worst of the worst that I've seen, basically. Then we have meh to like vanilla, which might be enjoyable, but very forgettable as vanilla ice cream. You know, yeah, vanilla's good, but... Then we have Sushi, which is very enjoyable and memorable. Yeah, any sushi friends out there? If you hate sushi, just substitute your favorite food. Whatevs. Up one more tier, we have The Cool Cats. These are genuinely good movies that I would rewatch if like they're on TV or something, or I flip through the channels. I'm like, oh, it's blah, blah, blah. Then we have the real MVPs. These are movies that I would seek out to rewatch multiple times and probably will throughout my lifetime. So these are really good movies. And then we have the Scaredy Cal Tier, which is God mode. These are classics or movies that will become classics. So for instance, our first movie I will put up there just so you can get a kind of glimpse of what I'm talking about. Nightmare on Elm Street, baby. Yeah, you guys know I love Freddy. He is the man. And A Nightmare on Elm Street is absolutely a classic, as we discussed that it was inducted into the National Film Registry by the Congress of the United States. So, you know, it's not just me saying this, folks. It's basically our culture. All right, so let's get started. As you see, I have all these movies down here, most of which we've talked about in depth. Some I've just mentioned in passing. Right off the bat, one of the movies that annoyed and angered me the most this year, which is a 2024 flick, Afraid. It was an AI movie. It was boring. It was quick to wrap up. It was just kind of cliche, and it upset me that I spent money on it. Yeah. Now, here's another movie in that tier that isn't as bad. So these will also be placed in order from what I thought was best to worst within their own tier. So for instance, the 2024 version of Speak No Evil. Way better than Afraid. But comparatively, if you watch the channel, you know that I love the original way more than I did the remake. James McAvoy's performance was stellar, but compared to the original movie, it just did not hold water. And it upset me the way they ended things in that movie because it did not stay true to the original. The original is definitely a cool cat kind of movie. It's a lot. And again, the ending just kind of sticks with you for a couple days. I feel like it was probably one of the best movies of 2022, which is when it came out. See that if you haven't yet. Again, it's really good. And then of course, go back and watch all the reviews I did over these videos if you have time. All right, next up. So let's do The Crow 2024 was better than Afraid, but it still was lacking. It's got my man Bill Skarsgård in it, who makes another appearance on this list in a vastly different way. And so I was hoping for a lot from this movie because I also do like FK Twigs as an artist as well, but it didn't do it. It didn't do it. The plot was kind of meh. The entire movie was basically just, I mean, less than meh because it's in this annoyed to anger category. But yeah, I was kind of let down by it a lot. But Bill Skarsgård's other movie, which we just talked about, I'm just gonna do it because you guys knows what's up. Nosferatu. Now I'm gonna put Nosferatu in front of A Nightmare on Elm Street, not necessarily because I like it more than A Nightmare on Elm Street, but I'm just gonna put the newer movies there and those that are not 2024 at the end. Do I need to say anything else about Nosferatu? It was a visual masterpiece and genuinely scary. If you haven't seen it, it, go see it. It is so good. And Bill Skarsgård, again, disappears into that role. It's phenomenal. All right, so here's an example of meh to vanilla. Alien Romulus. I enjoyed it, but I already forget a lot of parts of it. So it's enjoyable, but it's forgettable. I found it was better than a lot of other entrances that have been in the franchise, but overall, I mean, it was okay. It was good. It was good. I'm not going to remember it in a couple years. I remember only a couple parts. I remember Andy's performance was really good. Andy did well. The character. The actor that played Andy. Another classic up there. God Mode tier. Friday the 13th, the original. I rewatched it because I was going to do that giant Friday the 13th kill list, which I still plan to do, but it's going to be released the next Friday the 13th, which is in June. So that's a ways away, but it's absolutely a classic. It's such a good movie, and it is different than all the rest, of course, because spoiler alert, it's not Jason that's killing in that one, it is his mother. But it's also just good in so many other ways. The plot is more developed, the characters are actually kind of fleshed out, at least a little bit more compared to the other ones where it's just like, what was that person's name? Oh, they're dead? Okay, never mind. All right. Another movie from this year that I enjoyed and found memorable was Beetlejuice. I know this was kind of a hate or love movie for a lot of people. I thought it did well. It did have some plot holes. It did have some instances where I was like, all right, that's kind of fan service. And it did kind of leave us wanting a little more. But overall, I thought it was very enjoyable. I loved Michael Keaton's performance. I thought he did very well. I thought his connection with Lydia was even more like in sync compared to the old one. I don't know if that's sacrilege to say. I mean, I love the old one too. So Sushi, very enjoyable, very memorable. Okay, so our first MVP, stop motion. If y'all remember me talking about stop motion, I will watch that multiple times. It is one of those movies where I think like if you're at home sick or something and you just like want something on, you got your bowl of soup. If you're a horror nerd like me anyway, you got your bowl of soup or stew and you're just chilling, watching stop motion. Very freaky. My girl, Aisling Franciosi, is in it and she does a stellar job in this movie. If you have not seen Stop Motion yet, it is playing on Shudder. So do yourself a favor and see that movie. It is a real MVP. Another classic, God Mode, Alien, of course, which I do enjoy more than Friday the 13th. Sorry, but it's the OG sci-fi thriller, And that movie, I mean, Ripley, that movie is so good. I have to do a deep dive on that one day. All right, our fun movie that my BFFF had us review play-by-play, Darkness Falls. All right, so Darkness Falls, if I had just watched it in 2003, coming out of the theater, I probably would have put it in the meh or even the annoyed to anger category because I found myself then probably being more like wanting a serious, elevated type of horror. But now I see it as something that it's kind of fun. So like if you're playing the drinking game in there, or I mentioned if you take a shot every time or a drink every time they say stay in the light, then I could see that as maybe an MVP type of flick. But overall, now I find it enjoyable just because of having fun doing it and then just all the things in there, man. Again, watch my video on that. It's a play-by-play retelling and I don't know, I find it enjoyable now. It's definitely like not the best movie, but it's fun. It's fun. All right, another cool cat, Abigail. I very much enjoyed Abigail. I would rewatch that if it was on all the time. The actress, what was her name? Alicia Rear does a phenomenal job, especially for a 12-year-old. I was blown away. And Catherine Newton just had me laughing throughout the whole movie. Very good, very good. I'm gonna pause for a second because I'm getting hot, so I'm gonna change out of this sweatshirt. Cool. That's another thing about doing these videos. I run hot, like I'm always hot, but I can't have like the fans or air conditioner on during these because the mic will pick it up. So I gotta have everything off. And then, you got lights and everything on me. Anyways, whatever, complaining. I'm also drinking hot coffee. I love coffee. Topo and espressos. Hashtag not a sponsor. All right, moving on. So let's see here. Okay, this one is a controversial one because I know, and if you watch my movie, it was hated on so much, people calling it the worst movie of all time, people giving it a 1.5 star out of 5, a 1 star out of 5. And I just thought it was overly hated on. But I found it enjoyable and memorable. Was it the best movie? No. If we look at it from the lens that Arthur Fleck wasn't the Joker. He was just a man that inspired the Joker. I think, even though it might be upsetting, it kind of, in a meta way, shows us how we, the audience, are also being selfish and don't care about Arthur. And we just want him to do what we want him to do, when in fact we need to take a step back and be like, he's a human being. And even though he's committed these atrocities, we can still feel for him because he himself still feels. Whereas the Joker does not feel. The Joker is a socio-psychopath, okay? And I will stick by that. I mean, yeah, you have the Killing Joke story where kind of one of his origins is he starts off as a regular guy. That's canon and not canon. In a sense, and I'm about to upset so many DC people. That's canon. I mean, the great thing about the Joker is his origin is murky. That's why Heath Ledger's performance was so great, because he kept changing up his story about how I got these scars. So I'm putting it there. I know I know some people would put it down here in the annoyed to anger, but I found it enjoyable and I'll definitely remember it. Would I rewatch it a bunch of times? Probably not, no. But it did have some very beautiful musical sequences, and I'll stand by that. I think it was good in that sense. To compare the regular Joker, which we also talked about, yeah, that's a real MVP. Absolutely, 100%. That movie is so good. And it probably should have stayed a standalone, but you know, Hollywood and stuff. I actually did enjoy that a little bit more than stop motion. All right, what else we got here? Let's do some that we kind of just glimpsed over. If you've never seen ABCs of Death, it is definitely worth a watch. So I have on here ABCs of Death 2, because technically that's the one I mentioned. But ABCs of Death 1 or 2, they're an anthology series, and there's 26 letters in our English alphabet, and there's 26 short stories, each one loosely based on a letter of the alphabet, but it's really good. I will say viewer discretion advised, because they do get crazy. I actually saw one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen. I forget if it was from ABCs of Death 1 or 2. We'll talk about it eventually, but it was one of the most disturbing short movies I've ever seen. I gasped. It was intense. Those of you that have seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. Maybe we'll discuss it another time, but ABCs of Death, definitely worth a watch if you ever get a chance. Along with Eden Lake, which was another movie that was recommended that I'm going to do a full breakdown about, probably another play-by-play or retelling, but that was really good too, and it was along the lines of Speak No Evil, but I enjoyed that one quite a bit. Smile 2, I will definitely rewatch that movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I think that it did a good job for a sequel, not as good as the first one. If you follow me, you know that sequels, in my eyes, very, very hard. You got to give them some leeway, because it's so hard to top the original. For instance, I think the original will be a classic. I enjoyed it tremendously. It's one of my favorite movies. I think it was great, just from the allegorical sense of mental illness and how it plays within our own heads and can create our own nightmares. As someone that suffers from depression and has met with trauma in their life, like, you know, most people have, I really enjoy Smile. But Smile 2, I thought did a good job for a sequel. Not as good, but I'll still rewatch it multiple times. OG, Night of the Living Dead, baby. Night of the Living Dead. And let me reorder these. And actually, since Joker wasn't 2024, we'll put it back there. Another great one I found, if you follow my channel, you know I think this movie is so cool and so unique. Mads, the French zombie flick that I thought gave us a totally different perspective on the zombie horror trope. It is a one continuous shot movie. So like Birdman, you see it all play out in real time. I thought it was spectacular, especially Laura Pavi's performance. I thought she did great. And I don't think there'll be a sequel, but I hope to see more from that director, definitely. Let's stick with the zombie movies. 28 Days is definitely, 28 Days Later, I keep doing that. 28 Days is a Sandra Bullock movie about alcoholism. And so they're very different movies, but 28 Days Later is the zombie flick. And I would say that is definitely, is that OG? I mean, it's so good. It's good. I'm gonna put that in the real MVPs. That one's tough. It's probably ahead, but since it's not a 2024 movie, Put it right there. Seems about right to me. All right. Keep on moving on. Heretic. I foresee me rewatching that every time I flip through the channels and see it on TV. It's so good. I love philosophical, religious, horror type movies. And again, this one I feel is kind of similar to the movie Frailty in the sense that if you're religious or non-religious, I think you'll be attracted to the movie. I think both will find bulletin points to back up their claims, their beliefs. You know what I mean? Heretic, it was so good. Hugh Grant's performance, Chloe East, Sophie Thatcher's performances, they all did very well. All right, I think most of these are not 2024 anymore, except for The Substance, which I loved. It's like probably my favorite movie of the entire year. I'm trying to put the 2024 ones towards the front. But yeah, I liked it just a little bit more than Nosferatu. It's so good. You know, the aging metaphors and how they use Hollywood, because it's not just a Hollywood thing. We all, to some extent, are afraid of growing old and frail and being shunned from the spotlight. It's not something that is foreign to any of us, Hollywood or not. Like, we don't want to get old. We don't want to die, right? I mean, sometimes we want to die. All right. Okay, so let's put the rest of these, which I think Last Voyage of the Demeter was a 2023 movie, technically. I found it enjoyable, but forgettable. It's got my girl Aisling Franciosi in it as well, and it is about the ship that Dracula took to sail from Transylvania to London, which I found so interesting. I thought it was cool they did that, but I didn't even realize until I started watching this movie, Dracula 31, which I found enjoyable and memorable. Let's be real. It would go in front, so I guess I'll put it right here since it's not 2024, of course. 94-year-old movie because it's so close to 2025. We'll put Freaks also up there. That's that cult classic that we talked about briefly about the circus folk that are called freaks, them saying it, not me. And it's actually a really good movie. It's got a really good message, I think. Basically, you know, don't be a dick. Because what do we know about dicks? Insane clowns running around, take them out. Insane clown just running around. If that'll blend together well. Oh, there's another 2024 movie, Terrifier 3. How could I forget? That movie was fun. Definitely would rewatch if it was on. As far as scariness goes, not as scary as the previous ones in my view. I think actually All Hallows Eve and Terrifier Part 1 were scarier, but I did like the overtop just craziness that Terrifier 3 brought to the screen, and it was cool to see in a theater on the big screen. So much blood, so much gore. Don't see it if you don't like body horror, or you will, I don't know, if you throw up, you'll throw up. Frailty is that movie I was talking about that remind me of Heretic, and that one is a good one that I do actually sometimes watch when it's on a lot. It's got Matthew McConaughey in it, Bill Paxton. It's a good flick, and I don't want to ruin it, but if you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch. Definitely worth a watch. I have A Quiet Place on here, directed by John Krasinski, and that's a good movie. I would probably put that one just ahead of Mads. I think I like Smile 2 a little bit more. It's not 2024. I'm confusing myself in this thing. Quiet Place, of course, great movie, real MVP. Rewatch that one all the time. Oh, I have All Hallows Eve on here. Cool. I would put that just ahead of Terrifier 3. Well, so I think All Hallows Eve is scarier than Terrifier 3, but I enjoyed Terrifier 3 more than All Hallows Eve. Even though it lingered and was a bit long, it's just so over the top. And Lavera's performance, she's awesome. She's really good. Constantine. I freaking love that movie. That one would be real MVP all the way over here. But since it's not 2024, yeah, most def. The old Nosferatu. That one is definitely enjoyable and memorable. I like it more than Dracula, even though the film barely survived and is cut and spliced together in such a way that makes it kind of hard to follow. And then, of course, the graininess and the film quality isn't up to par compared to even Dracula 31. But I think the significance of it And I mean, look at this shadow. That's one of the most famous scenes in horror history. And to think that this movie almost didn't exist because of copyright law, which makes sense, don't get me wrong. They ripped off Dracula hardcore. But because of a copyright error in the United States, we were allowed to see it and keep it. And it still survives 102 years later. And it inspired this fucking epic right here. So good. Let's stay with the Robert Eggers theme, Lighthouse. If you haven't seen The Lighthouse, it's fucking fantastic. Definitely would put it in the real MVP section. Did like Nosferatu more, but The Lighthouse is like right there. Dracula 92, definitely enjoyable, definitely memorable. I do rewatch that sometimes when it's on, but yeah. The Crow. All right. Don't hate me. I do enjoy this movie. I do like it. I find it memorable. I would put it around here. It's not 2024, so we'll do this. It is way better than the Skarsgård FKA Twig ones, no doubt. I mean, I don't think there was a question of whether that would be the case, but the fact that this just bombed and flopped the way it did, blah. Another Robert Eggers movie that I'm doing a full play-by-play retelling of. Corey, I know I said this was going to be my next video, but it's going to be a little longer, so it's taking me a little bit more. But The Witch is very good. I've rewatched it and seeked it out several times. It is not 2024 movie though. I do like The Lighthouse a little more though. And then I have The Ring down here. The Ring, I am actually putting The Ring in God mode because I think it had such an influence on horror cinema for the next couple, decades. I mean, it came out in, I think, 2001-ish, around there, maybe 2003, but it's the whole technology meeting horror kind of vibe. And I think it inspired probably like VHS and other cell phone horrors and things like that. Now we have, Skyping horror. There's a lot of found footage horror stuff. The Ring isn't found footage, but it was a classic, scary. Overall, I like The Ring a lot. Anyways, yeah, that was fun. Let me know if you like these kind of vids. I would love to do more tier list type things, but this is what I got. Again, I put the 2024 movies up front so you can get a kind of better glimpse of how I view them. So the ones that aren't 2024 wouldn't necessarily be in these spots. They probably be mixed all throughout. Yeah, this is my tier list. So hopefully this gives you a little glimpse into my rating and review scale. This is kind of just between these movies. I think I had 40 movies, 39, 38, 40 movies here. I don't know, that was fun. Overall, I think it was a good year for horror in 2024. I mean, 2 God mode classics. You probably only get maybe 1 normally. So yeah, it was a good year. If you haven't seen any of these, I would suggest all of them except for these 3 down here. Definitely watch the original Speak No Evil. Definitely watch the original Crow, and you can just write off Afraid. I don't think anyone will ever think about that or remember it again. Yeah. All right, thanks y'all. This has been The Real Value. I'm Cal. Remember, be nice to each other. Can't do that, just don't be a dick. Insane Clown will get you. And see me next time, because I can't see you. Peace.
Was it all just a show to you? Was it all just a flow to you?